Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share 5 things that I wish I knew before I started gardening. I've been gardening properly for about 4 years now since we moved into this house, and I've learned so much during that time, and I've put a lot of time and effort into gardening, and there are just some things that I wish I'd known at the start of that process. The first thing being how much money I would spend, and not how much as in like one volume amount, but how frequently I would need money for the garden, and how important setting a line item in your budget for gardening is, or it is for me anyway. So all of this time I've been fitting in my gardening expenses into our general household budget. So we have obviously a budget, and we set aside money for food and money for utilities and money for all kinds of different things, petrol and whatever, and we're left with a certain amount that we budget for household expenses, for clothes, for shoes, for any traveling we might do, or for buying paint, or whatever we need comes out of that general expenses amount that we've budgeted. And I was trying to take all of my gardening out of that. It just wasn't working. I kind of would have other expenses that would take up that money, and there wouldn't be much left for gardening, or I would make some gardening purchases and that would affect the rest of the household budget. And recently I've just realized I need a line item with a set amount every single paycheck that's just for the garden. And it doesn't have to be a big amount, but setting aside a bit of money has made so much difference that I can accumulate that and buy something more expensive I've been wanting to get, or I can kind of save it up over winter and spend more in spring when I'm gardening more intensely. And it's just made a huge difference, and I wish I'd known from the beginning to just set aside money for gardening specifically each paycheck. I garden quite frugally. I grow a lot of things from seed, and I have a nursery nearby that sells shrubs and things for really inexpensively, but even so it adds up, and there are things that you need to buy: potting soil or compost or seeds or tools, and having a budget makes a big difference. The second thing I wish I'd known or kind of understood better is that most perennial plants just disappear in winter. I thought I was being very clever by planting a lot of perennials and sowing them from seed to cut the cost down, and having all these flowers in my garden that I was confident were just going to come back each year, and I wasn't going to have to keep planting things there and spending money on plants. But I didn't realize how some of them just completely vanish altogether in winter. I knew that they would flower seasonally each year and they wouldn't be flowering all year round, but I guess I thought that the foliage would stay behind. Not the case for so many perennials, and now I have regrets in my garden that there are just bare patches in winter. Maybe this won't matter so much to you, especially if you live in a climate where it snows in winter and your ground is covered anyway, but for me, I still want to enjoy my garden by seeing it through the window in winter, even if I'm not spending time in it. And having bare patches and empty ground is just not fulfilling to me, and I wish I'd understood perennials better and understood which ones are evergreen and which ones are deciduous, and known to avoid the ones that just disappear in winter, or at least been more intentional about where I put them, so that I could dot those bare spaces in winter more strategically through my evergreen plants, rather than just having, you know, a bunch of evergreens there and then a big empty patch where deciduous perennials are. I would have saved a lot of time and money if I had understood plants better, but I guess you just learn as you go sometimes. On that note, I wish I'd been more patient and started with my structure. So what I did was fell in love with flowers. One of the reasons I grow flowers is I like to photograph them and do macro photography, and I concentrated on putting in perennial flowers when really I should have been concentrating on putting in shrubs and structure, and then putting in the flowers around those things. So I'm now 4 years down the line, and I'm starting to put in more shrubs and more structure into my garden, and it's going to take so much time for them to fill in and get bigger, whereas if I'd started 4 years ago, they would have been huge. Like the hydrangeas behind me, they're massive. I put those in 4 years ago. They are deciduous as well, by the way. They drop their leaves and they turn into sticks in winter. So if you're starting a garden, please plan your structure first. Put in your big shrubs, or the shrubs that you would like to grow big. Put in your hedges. Just be patient. I know you want to have flowers. You can put in annual flowers in the meantime to fill in all of the bare gaps around it, but get your structure in, because the sooner they start growing and filling in, the better. Another thing I wish I had known when I first started gardening was how many hours I would spend weeding, but that it does get better. So those are kind of two things I wish I'd known. I hadn't anticipated the flush of weeds. Oh my goodness, have I been battling weeds for the last 4 years. I would weed an area bare, and then a week later it would just be flushed over with weeds again. And I found it so discouraging, whereas if I'd known to expect that, I don't know, probably still just as discouraging. But I think what's happened is I cultivated soil for the first time ever. This garden had never been gardened, and that woke up all these seeds in the soil, because now I'm finding 4 years down the line it's so much better. In areas that I've been consistently weeding, hardly any weeds come up now, and it's so much easier to get on top of. So I wish I'd known to expect a huge flush of weeds and a huge problem with weeds for a few years, but that if you just consistently keep weeding, it's not going to be like that forever. Just keep going, and pulling out the weeds is going to get better, and it will eventually clear that area, and it'll be so much easier to get on top of. Plus, things like ground covers and shrubs, if you plant them in early, will start to fill in and cover some of that space, and there will be less room for weeds as well. Mulch does help, by the way. Really thick mulch does help. And then the fifth thing that I wish I'd known when I started gardening was just how much joy it would bring me. Gardening is so satisfying for me. I am still working on my relationship with my garden. I've tried to change my mindset from having areas be done or resenting some of the weeding and maintenance, and just to appreciate that it's all part of my relationship with my garden, and that it's ongoing. Just the same as you walk a dog every single day and you're never done walking your dog, it's the same maintaining a garden. But it's so worth it, and it brings me so much satisfaction, so much peace, and so much joy. It is like therapy getting out there and working in my garden, and I wish I'd known how much joy I would take from it, because I would have started so much sooner. Even while renting, I would have put in the money and the effort to grow plants that make me so happy, because it's just been so rewarding, and I kind of regret having denied myself that joy and reward for so many years, just because I didn't know that it was waiting for me. So those are 5 things that I wish I'd known when I started gardening. I have a couple of videos answering gardening questions. If you have more gardening questions, I'd love to know them, and I will do another Q&A video. But if you're interested in the 2 gardening Q&A videos I've already done, I will link them down below. Let me know what you wish you'd known about when you first started gardening. I would be very curious to know your answers. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.